Part 45. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoya 11U. Chapter 443. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. Uncle Lou and Uncle Lou were very happy. With a separate business, there is no need to go to the countryside to farm. The family can still live in the city, and people in several houses can still stay together and take care of each other. Although Suzhou is my nephew's territory, it is a strange place for them, so it is better for everyone to be together. Sister-in-law, what about me? Bozong saw that his sister-in-law had arranged everything for Boxiang, but he had nowhere to go and was a little anxious. He doesn't want to eat free rice. I thought that the eldest brother, the military governor, was a high-ranking official, and it would be easy for him. If he came to Suzhou and joined his eldest brother, he would be able to live well and be a young master of a wealthy family. I didn't expect it to be so difficult for Big Brother. Lu Shenke felt very happy when he saw that his daughter-in-law had made arrangements for his eldest brother and younger brother's family. Take them out. If they live a bad life and have no place to live, he will feel uncomfortable. But seeing that the 2 brothers had made arrangements, he still didn't have a place for this room, and he was a little anxious. Su Qingnao thought of the 1,000 taels that Lu Shenke stuffed back to her. After thinking for a while, he said, "Dad took Bozong to walk around the streets first to see what kind of business you can do. There is an iron street over there, and Dad went there to walk around. Now the blacksmith shops in Suzhou are very busy. It's booming. Dad, let's go see if this business can be done. Instead of making money by doing it for others, it is better to leave some things to Father Lu. The rich water will not flow to outsiders' fields. Okay, then Dad will take your brother for a walk on the street." After the matter was agreed upon, the people in the house took their leave and went out to investigate. Within a few days, Dafang Sanfang bought a shop and opened a tofu shop. With the 2 people in the house together, and Su Qingyu introducing disabled soldiers who had retired from the army, the business quickly picked up. On Lu Shenke's side, he looked at the iron street and saw that the business was bustling with businesses from all walks of life coming to deliver goods every day, so he thought about opening a blacksmith shop. Su Qingyu agreed very much. Let him first find some craftsmen on the street. After he found the shop and the craftsman, Su Qingyu found him again before opening. "Qing now, you want me to go outside to take orders, and then contact various shops to allocate work? Is that what you mean?" Lu Shenke pondered Su Qingnao's words, understood it on his own, and asked her. Su Qingyu nodded, "That's exactly what I mean. Dad, you have been in business for decades. You are very experienced in dealing with people. You are not afraid of negotiating with anyone. And with your status, I believe you can do this." Lu Shenke was very puzzled. "Why do you want Dad to do this? Each shop can take orders by itself, and you don't want to allocate work from others, right? In this way, they have to share part of the profit with others. If you have your own shop, why should you share profits with others? Probably no one would want to. Dad, you haven't seen that many craftsmen are very good at their craftsmanship, but they only immerse themselves in work for many years. They don't know what is popular outside and the tastes and preferences of their customers. First, they don't have the ability to communicate with them. People socialize and negotiate prices among merchants. In fact, these skilled craftsmen are at a great disadvantage. As for merchants who can do such a thing, like you have business acumen, understand the preferences of outside merchants, and know what is needed in the market, but you don't know how to blacksmith or make utensils, you are not good at craftsmanship, and you don't know anything. Good or bad, right?" Lu Shenke nodded. "It is true that people who can do things cannot speak, people who can speak cannot do things, and there are only a few people who can do things and speak at the same time. So, in the long run, For foreign merchants, they don't know what's going on here, and they don't know which shop can't finish orders, and which shop has no orders to fill. If they place orders casually, it also delayed the construction schedule and affected his schedule. One person is needed to balance this matter. Although there is an iron official here, he has no control over how the pig iron ingots are sold and how the private sector operates. If he does, he is afraid of arousing everyone's resentment and saying that the government's hands are too stretched long. Lu Shenke understood. Dad, I understand, it's just like a private chamber of commerce, right? Su Qingyu smiled and nodded. Yes, that's pretty much what it means. In order not to affect the reputation of Suzhou, and to make this ironware a pillar industry in Suzhou, we need a private organization to take the lead, balance production capacity, and contact production shops with excess capacity or no work to do. Will also need people to contact outside merchants to balance the two. This time Lu Shenke really understood. This matter can help you and Bo Chang, right? Yes, this can help Bo Chang. Lu Shenke immediately straightened his chest. Okay, then Dad will listen to you. Whatever you say, Dad will do it. Su Qingyu was very pleased. I have been thinking about the candidate before. This candidate must have a certain degree of credibility, cannot be co-opted by all parties, and must be absolutely fair. It is best for Dad to do this now. It is best to set up a chamber of commerce to understand the production capacity of each store, and help everyone receive orders and distribute them. If the orders we receive cannot be completed, I will help them find other shops to complete them. Then we will summarize the opinions of merchants. Help our shop to do a better job. In the end, we must achieve a win-win situation. First, let the outside merchants be satisfied with our products. Second, let our blacksmith shop make money. Third, help Bo Chang make Suzhou a better place. Stabilize the pillar industries and become famous, so that when people mention ironware, they will think of Suzhou. Lu Shenke's blood boiled when he heard this. He patted his chest and said, Okay, Dad will do this. Then, am I not allowed to open an iron shop? Otherwise, others will say that we are seeking personal gain. Su Qingyu thought for a while and said, Leave the shop to Bozong, just let him do the same as everyone else, report his production capacity every month, how much surplus is there, how many jobs can be taken, in order. Distribute work. Dad just needs to contact various shops and merchants outside. Just be a bridge between the two. There's no need to force it. If some shops can take orders by themselves, let him do it himself. If he can't do it himself and is willing to let Dad help arrange it, Dad will take it and help arrange it. If he wants to find a shop by himself, it's up to him to make adjustments, and Dad doesn't have to worry about it. As for how much you charge others for a job, Dad, you can communicate with both parties on your own, but I suggest not to charge too harshly. This matter must be viewed in the long term. Making money is secondary, the main thing is fame and fortune. Dad understands. This matter cannot affect Bo Chang. Dad is helping Bo Chang stabilize the market anyway. Dad has money to spend, and it doesn't matter if he doesn't make money. Su Qingyu smiled, it's not possible if you don't make money. Others will question Dad's purpose. For example, if a piece of ironware sells for 100 cents, Dad, if you receive 5 cents at both ends, it's already 10 cents. It's a lot of money. I'll tell Bo Chang, Mr. Pei, an iron officer about this, and we'll see about it in the future regarding my father's work situation, should I give him a salary. Lu Shenke waved his hand, no, there is no need to pay him a salary. We can't let others say that Bo Chang is using his power for personal gain. If Dad does this well, he can make a lot of money. Besides, we also need to open an ironware shop at home, so we won't be short of money. Okay, I understand. Then Dad, you should communicate this matter with each iron shop. The merchants outside will also ask Dad to run away. Okay, Dad understands. Dad will go now. Xiaoqi stopped hugging her and ran happily to the street. Su Qingyu still has great confidence in Lu Shenke. Lu Shenke has been in business for decades, and his eloquence and smooth talk are still very good. How to discuss business with merchants, how to persuade the blacksmith, how to balance the two sides, as long as he chants Bo Chang, he will definitely be able to get it done. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhaoye 11U. Chapter 444. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. Dad. Dad, Xiaobao ran towards his father's tent excitedly. The 2 guards at the door winked at him frequently. Xiaobao had just heard that he was about to break camp and go home. He was so excited that when he didn't see it, he rushed past the 2 guards, lifted the curtain, and got in. Dad. It was miserable. All the generals and military advisors in the camp turned to look at him. Mao Mao, how can you become a Tong? You won't report it when you come in, Lu Bachan frowned and scolded. Dad, I was wrong. Dabao followed, understood the guard's eyes, and stopped outside the camp. But when he heard his father scolding Xiaobao inside, he thought about it and opened the curtain and went in. Wei Zhao has met all the generals and military advisors. Wei Yang has met all the generals and military advisors. The 2 brothers came back to their senses and hurriedly greeted the elders in the tent. Ha ha ha, it's okay. Your dad still thinks you're rude, isn't he young? Qian Quan laughed and tried to smooth things over, fearing that Master Jidushi would deal with Xiaobao's military law. These 2 children won his heart. Especially Xiaobao, who is better than his master. In the past 3 years, he had secretly followed them out to fight many battles. How could anyone dare to underestimate him? Sir, there is someone to follow. Congratulations. The generals looked at the 2 sons of the Lord, and they all said that the tiger father had no dog sons, and he was really a formidable young man. At the age of 12 or 13, he is already a well-established little tiger general. As time goes by, his achievements will be far higher than their father's. Everyone looked happy. Xiaobao secretly looked up at his father and saw that his father was glaring at him, but there was no anger in his eyes, so he let out a sigh of relief. Stand back. Lu Bachan was discussing matters with the generals when he was interrupted by his younger son. Seeing that the generals were helping to smooth things over, he raised his hands and let it go. Yes, Dabao and Xiaobao hurriedly stood behind the generals, pricking up their ears and listening carefully. This time, there is civil strife in Weibajun. Should we do something? What can we do? There are still several states away from us north of the Yellow River. We can't attack it, right? It's not a few states away. It would be great if Kozhu and Weizhu are still in our hands. We can just go there and take advantage. I'm afraid that this time the advantage will be taken by Jin state. If Jin swallows up Weibo's 100,000 strong army, it will be very detrimental to us. In the battle between Jin and Liang, we can just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. It won't offend us, right? Why can't we commit the same crime? If Jin becomes bigger and swallows Weibo whole, the road to the south will be opened. Suzhu is so close to him, aren't we afraid that Jin will bite us? After Wu Yuzhen, the 3rd emperor of the Liang dynasty, came to power, the treasury was empty and corrupt officials were appointed to amass money. Not only did external social conflicts intensify, but conflicts continued within the royal family. Wu Quanzong's disciples were suspicious of each other and dissatisfied with their brothers on the throne. Today you will mess with me, and tomorrow I will fight with you. They always want to launch a coup to seize the throne. Wu Yuzhen's head is as big as a bucket. He was so flawless that he missed the last three states in Jiangsu. Jiangning, Runzhou, and Changzhou were captured by Zhenjun during the struggle between Wu and Zhenjun. The main thing that made Wu Yuzhen feel like a stick in his throat was Weibo's military governor Yang Shihao. Yang Shihao relied on his support, was arrogant and lawless, and had no monarch in his eyes. Wu Yuzhen was afraid of his great power, so he consulted Yang Shihao before implementing any affairs in the court, no matter how big or small. Yang Shihao seemed to have become the overlord of the Liang dynasty. Fortunately, it was only 2 years ago. Yang Shihao died of illness soon because of his old age. After Wu Yuzhen heard the news, she was relieved and held a banquet in the palace to celebrate. After congratulating him, he felt that Weibo town was still a big threat. Weibo has many soldiers and generals, and Weibo's soldiers are brave and good at fighting, and its geographical location is close to the imperial capital. If this threat is not removed, Wu Yuzhen will not be able to live in peace. Therefore, his close confidant Zhao Yan came up with a plan. It was better to take advantage of the fact that his army had no master and split Weibo into two to achieve the purpose of weakening its strong position. Wu Yuzhen followed his plan and issued an edict to divide Weibo into Tianxiang and Zayed towns, and divide the treasury and soldiers in half. Fearing that Weibo's officers and men would not obey, he sent General Lu Jian with an army of 60,000 to cross the Yellow River and approach Weizhou, preparing to suppress it. Weibo's soldiers had been soldiers for generations and were unwilling to be weakened by separation, so they gathered people to mutiny. They set fire and looted, kidnapped the new governor He Dalun, and asked him to surrender to the Jin dynasty. Mu Yuxian was overjoyed and planned to personally lead his army to Weizhou to receive Weibo's army. The news reached Lu Bachan. It has been 3 years, and it has not been easy. Wu state wants to win over Jiangning and Ningxia, and Lu Bachan wants to do it too. But the 3 states of Jiangning and Ning are not just for leisure. They are originally a prosperous land in the south of the Yangtze River, with abundant food and money, strong soldiers and strong horses, and they will be taken away by anyone who wants to. 3 years have passed since the stalemate. Fortunately, Lu Bachan's army was backed by the king of Yu, and Yang Bai took advantage of the conflict between Liang and Jin to divide his troops and go north. Only then did Lu Bachan work hard to acquire Jiangning, Runzhou and Changzhou. Just as he was about to break camp and return to Suzhou, news from Weibo came. Lu Bachan listened to the discussions of the generals and military advisors below, frowning and tapping his fingers on the table. Suddenly he said, "You said that Weibo Jun showed his kindness to Jin and asked him to surrender to Jin. Is this news true or false? Ah, can this be false? Why does the marshal think this news is false?" Lu Bachan thought for a moment and then said, "First of all, Weibo's soldiers killed Mu Yuxian's brother. This is equivalent to an enemy. Are they not afraid that Mu Yuxian will settle the score with them? Secondly, they were originally soldiers of the Liang dynasty, but now we have to break them up and divide them into 2 vassal towns. They are not happy. It's just that the upper-level generals don't want to be decentralized and have their power weakened. Then the surrender by defeating Jin, can we guarantee that Jin will not be dispersed? Can Jin still let the original high-level generals lead the troops and not infiltrate some of their own people?" This. None of the generals thought of this and looked at each other in confusion. What does the marshal think? I don't know what's inside, but I think this could be a smoke bomb they deliberately set off to put pressure on the Liang dynasty. Once the Liang dynasty gets this news, they are afraid that they will really surrender to Jin. If they agree to their do you want to maintain the status quo? The generals frowned and thought. It's not impossible. They didn't want to decentralize power, so they started this mutiny. It would be better if they could maintain the status quo. If they surrender to Jin, there is no guarantee that Jin will break them up and let their close men lead them. That's not worth the loss. Then what should we do? Of course we don't want Jin to swallow up Weibo so smoothly. Weibo's 100,000 troops are all brave and skilled soldiers. Let Jin win, it will be even more powerful for Jin. It will pose a great threat to our naval general. Then can we secretly divide them? Weas who was captured by us at first, but we lost it later. Since we have to divide our troops, why not surrender to us if we surrender to Jin? Jin is a foreign tribe, why surrender to a foreigner? That's right, let's send people to sneak into Weibo and see if we can instigate them. The generals became more and more excited as they talked. It was as if they saw 100,000 Weibo troops coming to join them. But Lu Bachan is not too optimistic. Wei Bajun has been a soldier for generations, so they may not be happy to have them leave their hometown. At present, Lu Bachan does not want to occupy the territory north of the Yellow River. Jin and Liang were powerful, and they had no advantage in passing. Lu Bachan stopped everyone's discussion. Seeing that Weibo is about to become a battlefield between the Jin and Liang armies, and Suzhou is not far away, we must prepare for the war with all our strength and be ready at any time. Yes. Jin's cavalry is much stronger than Liang's army. Once Weibo is captured and Jin's route to the south is opened, it will be extremely detrimental to our army. Our cavalry is weaker than that of Jin. Please generals not to relax and not stop daily training. Cavalry training needs to be strengthened. Yes. Order. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 445. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. When the generals and military advisors left the camp, Lu Bachan was a little surprised to see his 2 sons wilting. Weren't you very excited just now? What's going on? Xiaobao walked forward depressedly. Dad, are we going to fight again? We have been fighting for 3 years, are you still fighting? Lu Bachan looked at his son, then at his eldest son, and laughed when he saw that Dabao also had a heavy look on his face. Don't you two really like fighting? Even if Dad doesn't want you to go to the battlefield, you two still follow him quietly. How many times has your uncle caught you? He didn't listen every time, but he still quietly carried Dad to the battlefield. Xiaobao pouted, you can't beat me every day. I've been beaten for 3 years. I thought it was over and I could go home to my mother and see my sister. But I have to beat her again. My sister has been beaten since I haven't seen her since she was born. I want to go home. Miss my mother. Lu Bachan's heart ached when his son mentioned his soft daughter. I originally thought that these 3 states would be like fighting Haizhu. With the master as my backing, it wouldn't take long before I could go home and hold my daughter. I didn't expect that it would last 3 years. From the time he went out before his daughter could raise her head, his daughter is now 3 years old. Don't even recognize him anymore. He comforted his 2 sons and said, the flames of war will not reach us for the time being. Jin and Liang are fighting for Weibo. Even if Weibo is swallowed up by Jin, the Liang dynasty will not be defeated for a while. Many places still recognize the power of the Central Plains. The local forces will not allow the Jin dynasty to grow. Really? Then we can go back to Suzhou to reunite with my mother and sister. Wow, that's great. Brother, we can go home. Dabao also nodded happily and smiled happily at Lu Bachan. Lu Bachan looked at his 2 sons who were almost as tall as him, feeling happy and relieved. In the past 3 years, the father and son lived and ate together, and the 2 sons became very close to him. After so many years of military career, Lu Bachan feels that these 3 years have been the happiest. Seeing that his 2 sons were happy, he couldn't help teasing them. Dad can break camp and go back, but you don't necessarily have to. Your grandfather is still waiting for you to return to Reyeshu for reunion. He even asked about your homework a few days ago. Ah, Xiaobao grimaced upon hearing this. It's not that they don't want to go back to Reyeshu to be with their grandfather. They also miss their grandfather. They have often seen each other in the past 3 years, but mother, they haven't seen their mother in 4 years. He misses his mother. I miss my mother so much. Lu Bachan was frightened when he saw tears welling up in his youngest son's eyes. He stepped forward and hugged him. Don't cry, don't cry. Dad lied to you. This time we will go back together to reunite with your mother, and we will never be separated again. Really? Xiaobao looked at him with a pair of big eyes. Lu Bachan felt distressed when he saw it. It's really true. After saying that, he reached out to Dabao. Dabao, come here, Daddy gives me a hug. Dabao said, Dad, I have grown up. Also, I am already 13 years old. Dad, please don't call me Dabao, but he still moved over. Yes, Dad, please don't call me Xiaobao. I am a young general who has fought in battles. How can I still call me Xiaobao? Dad, calling me like this is detrimental to my reputation. Tisk tisk, a 12-year-old boy knows what prestige is. Seeing that his father was disapproving and obviously not taking it to heart, Xiaobao emphasized again, Dad, I'm serious, please stop calling me Xiaobao and let everyone follow suit. If you call me again, I will ignore you. Lu Bachan was delighted. That little general, who was there just now thinking about my mother and crying because I couldn't get together with her. Who is it? It's not me anyway. Lu Bachan couldn't bear to look at his youngest son's rogue behavior. But when my son is older, it is not easy to undermine his little confidence. Lu Bachan gathered the soldiers from the 3 states, dispersed them and reorganized them into Zhenhai, and ordered heavy troops to guard the 3 states, while the rest decamped and returned to Suzhou. After receiving the news, Su Qingyu took the little girl Xiaoqi and waited at the city gate for the army to enter the city. Everyone in the family followed. Su Qingnao looked at them one by one, and then looked at Qingxing, who was waiting beside her and had a headache. Is there someone more important in the army? It makes you lose sight of the people around you. Yes, my brother-in-law, no one is important to me. I haven't seen them in 3 years. I miss them so much. After saying that, he looked at the little girl who was holding Su Qingyu's hand and looking towards the road on tiptoes. Coaxing her, Xiaoqi, you are about to see your father and brother. Are you happy? Xiaoqi nodded happily, happy. Then he looked up at Su Qingyu, Mom, what does Dad look like? What does brother look like? Su Qingyu touched her daughter's soft hair and said with a smile, Xiaoqi will know after a while when he sees it. After saying that, he saw Qingxing holding the little girl chattering, and rolled her eyes. Did you have a conflict with Pei Ji this morning? I saw that he had a dark face. He has a bad face, so he has a bad face, and he still wants me to coax him. You're 19 and he's 20, why don't you think about it? His grandfather is anxious and angry. He has asked me many times about your marriage. When will you give me an answer? If you don't like him, I will tell him as soon as possible and don't delay him. He is the only one left in his family. He's a man, and his grandfather is in a hurry. Qingxing didn't dare to look at her. It's not like I don't agree. I just said I would get married later. Late? When will you be late? You have to give someone the exact time. Oh, sister, is now the time to talk about this? Why can't you say it? This army is about to enter the city, you tell me this. I can hear the sound of horse hooves in front of me. Qingxing stamped her feet. When will you tell me? Give me some time. Su Qingyu refused to let her go. Wait until brother comes back. Okay, wait until Qing Yang comes back. If you don't want to, I will find another marriage arrangement for him. Sister, I didn't say I disagreed. Qing Xing stomped her feet in disbelief. Mother, mother, there is a clicking sound. Xiao Qi pulled her hand, and Su Qingyu stopped talking. The waiting crowd immediately became commotion. I'm coming. Wanjiang's army appeared in everyone's sight. The first two teams of cavalry escorts were led by a majestic general riding a tall horse. General, General. Marshal, Marshal. My lord, it's my lord, the crowd roared. General Xiao Qi also called. Xiao Qi, that's your dad, that's your dad. Is he Xiaoqi's father? It's Xiao Qi's father. Come on, grandpa, let's hold him up high. Lu Shenke squeezed over and held Xiao Qi on his shoulders. Wow, so high, the little girl's side was no longer blocked. Seeing the crowd crowding forward excitedly and waving to the army, Xiao Qi also waved to her father among them. Dad, Dad. Lu Bachan seemed to feel something and looked over here. At a glance, he saw Xiao Qi, who was taller than anyone else, and Su Qingyu in the crowd. She's his daughter, that's for sure. And the lady. Lu Bachan was extremely excited. 3 years later, he is back. He hurriedly stopped his horse, jumped down, and ran towards Su Qingyu. Dad, are you Xiaoqi's father? Lu Bachan's eyes were wet and hot, and he felt excited when he saw his daughter who had grown so big in a blink of an eye. First he took his daughter down and knelt down to Lu Shenke. Dad. Hey, hey, I'm back. It's good to be back. It's good to be back. Lu Shenke had tears in his eyes. Looking at the son he hadn't seen for more than 10 years, his heart was full of excitement. He helped him up and couldn't stop looking at him. Are you Xiaoqi's father? The little girl was very persistent. When her father didn't look at her, she asked again. Lu Bachan turned his attention to the little girl. Yes, I am Xiao Qi's father. Does Xiao Qi miss her dad? Dad misses Xiao Qi so much. After saying that, he hugged Xiao Qi tightly in his arms, and then hugged Su Qingyu over. The crowd immediately cheered, Sir, Sir, mighty, mighty. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bajia 11U. Chapter 446. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. Mom, Xiaobao misses you so much. Mom, Dabao misses you too. Su Qingyu hugged her 2 sons tightly, like 2 lost treasures. For 4 years, she missed them. Mom misses you too. Mom misses you so much. Mother and son hugged each other tightly. Xiaobao buried his head in his mother's arms. Mom, don't send us away in the future, okay? Xiaobao doesn't want to be separated from mother again. Mom, Dabao doesn't want to leave mom anymore. Okay, okay, we won't be separated from each other in the future. Su Qingyu's throat was choked. How could she be willing to be separated from her 2 sons? Look at the 2 sons in her arms. They are both taller than her. They are no longer the weak sons who insisted on lying on the same bed with her when they were young, listening to stories and coaxing them to sleep. Su Qingyu was happy and disappointed at the same time. The child seemed to have grown up overnight and was no longer the little baby in her arms. Xiaoqi was carried by her father on the big horse all the way back to the house. It was her first time riding a horse. She was so excited. When she got to the house, she still clung to her father and wanted her father to hold her. But when I saw that my mother was hugging someone else, she was not happy. She ran over and pushed her 2 brothers away. This is my mother, you are not allowed to hug her. Dabao and Xiaobao looked down at their chirping sister and squatted down. Xiao Qi, I am the elder brother, I am the second brother, and this is the eldest brother. You have to call me eldest brother, call me second brother. Xiaoqi looked at one, then the other, pursed her lips, and looked at her mother. Mom, are they brothers? Yes, he is Xiaoqi's brother. Suqingyu looked at the three children tenderly, her heart softening into a puddle of water. Xiaoqi looked at this and that. Before she could speak, Dabao picked her up, kissed her. After being kissed by the second brother, the little girl immediately giggled, brother, second brother. Hey, sister. Brother, let me give you a hug. I haven't had enough hugs yet. Come here, I've seen your grandfather. Uncle and Uncle Lu Bachan called his two sons to call for help. Dabao then put Xiaoqi on the ground. When Dabao and Xiaobao went up to call for help, Suqingnao also looked at Qingyang. Is the injury from last time healed? This 19-year-old brother has grown into a real man. In the past 3 years, he has suffered many injuries and made many achievements. Now he has become a full-fledged 5th-grade general through his own efforts. He is no longer looked down upon by others and is said to be a relative protected by his brother-in-law. It's okay, sister, it was just a minor injury and it's all healed now. Qingyang took her sister's hand and patted it gently. Brother, you are so much taller than me. Qingxin held the hand of her brother and followed with gestures with the other hand. You are a woman. If you are as tall as me, can you get married? How can you not marry? More people ask for. shx.com. Xiaoao looks online again. Really? You're 19 years old and you're still relying on your sister. If someone else takes a fancy to you, how can you still be here? It's obvious that no one wants her anymore. That's because I don't want to get married. Okay, brother Stinky made it sound like I was bad and no one wanted me, huh? Suqingyu watched the two brothers and sisters bickering, smiled and shook her head. In the hall, people from several rooms of the Lu family came, pulling Lu Bachan and Dabao Xiaobao to praise them. It is really the blessing of our ancestors that these three outstanding descendants were born. Xiaobao looked at Lu Weiji, who was a few months older than him. Are you my cousin Weiji? Weiji was a little shy, pursed his lips and nodded at Xiaobao, yes. Xiaobao stared at him curiously. Uncle Lu smiled and said, when I was a child, I saw that Xiaobao was stronger than Weiji. Now that we have grown up, when the two of them stand together, Weiji becomes more like a younger brother. He is much shorter than Xiaobao. Lu Shenke was happy in his heart, but he didn't want to show it too much. Xiaobao is jumping and jumping with his father. It's normal for him to grow taller. Weiji is still young and can still grow. He will also grow taller in the future. Fortunately, in the past 3 years, the tofu business of Dafang Sanfang has been good, making a lot of money every month, and the business has reached the neighboring states and counties. If he eats well and uses it well, he will look a little shorter than Xiaobao. Otherwise, he would be just like Xiaobao's follower like he was when he first came here 3 years ago. Lu Weiji looked at his cousin with some envy. Seeing the adult talking, he asked him in a low voice, is it difficult to practice martial arts? Can I practice martial arts? You want to practice martial arts? I can teach you. Weiji nodded excitedly, okay. Lu Shenke looked at the now promising Lu Bachan, twirling his beard happily, which made Wu, who was sitting next to him, feel sour in his heart. Lu Bozu, who was next to him, felt even more mixed emotions. When he was a child, he had always been competing with this brother. He was only 2 months older than him, so he was his brother and his biological brother. He refused. Fortunately, the aunt died and his mother straightened him up. He has his father and mother by his side, which can suppress him. He studied hard just to make his father happy and let his father praise him. The more his father praised him, the happier he was. Who would have thought that people who were not as good at reading as him would now have a sudden rise in status that was no longer within his reach? Now he still looks up to him. Wherever he goes, people say he is the second brother of the Lord. Mrs. Sun glanced at him and lowered her head silently. I wonder if it will be too late for the two children to get close to this uncle and let him help educate them. Baxiang's child is so big. Come here and take a look, Lu Bachan said to Lu Baxiang, who was holding the child next to him. Lu Baxiang also got married 2 years ago. He married the daughter of a businessman in the city and gave birth to a son who is just over 1 year old now. When Bo Xiang saw his cousin looking at him, he happily held the child in front of the cousin, and then stretched the child over. The child glanced at Lu Bachan, his mouth tightened, and he immediately burst into tears. Oh, what's wrong? This is your uncle. What are you afraid of? Bo Xiang was a little embarrassed when he saw that the child was holding his neck and refused to turn his head to look at Lu Bachan. Dad, you are full of blood, don't scare my nephew, Xiaobao said. Lu Bachan was stunned and sniffed his arm. No, there is no blood in it. 7-year-old Wei Wu rolled his eyes and ran over. Uncle, let me hug you. He opened his hands towards his uncle. Lu Bachan was a little surprised. This is Wei Wu. It's great. He looks like your father. Just as she was about to hug him, Xiao Qi ran over. This is my dad, go find your dad. She hugged Lu Bachan's arm and yelled at Wei Wu. Lu Bachan laughed loudly and picked up the little girl. This girl is quite protective of food. He scratched her nose. Dad, it hurts. Ah. Oops, Daddy couldn't control his strength and scratched Daddy's baby. Daddy should be beaten, he should be beaten. After Dabao and Xiaobao said hello to everyone, they ran to Su Qingyu, one on the left and the other on the right, holding her hand. Su Qingyu looked at this and that, feeling happy and sweet in her heart. Mom, do you miss Xiaobao? Xiaobao misses you so much that he even dreams about you. Why don't you want to? Mom misses you all in her dreams. Mom, Dabao misses you too. I miss you so much. Su Qingyu hugged Dabao. Yes. Mom misses Dabao. Your father said in the letter that you were disobedient and secretly went to the battlefield. No, we just followed and practiced, we didn't actually go. Yes, we just go there for experience. People with fathers are watching us. Su Qingnao didn't believe it, but her 2 sons were now grown up and were back safely, so that was enough. Keep them by your side from now on and never separate again. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 447. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. Lady. Thank you. Thank me for what? Su Qingyu was extremely tired and lay in Lu Bachan's arms without opening her eyes. Everything. Don't talk nonsense. Thank you, madam, for taking good care of my father and uncle. My father has said that marrying a good woman will bring prosperity to 3 generations, and you are the one. He also told me that now that my status is high, I should not do anything that would be sorry for you. Su Qingyu curled her lips. This father-in-law still understands the situation quite well. Then will you do anything sorry to me? I cannot. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid that my wife will ignore me. My wife, your heart is made of iron. If I do something sorry for you and you disappear, where can I find someone? Su Qingyu opened her eyes in his arms and was stunned for a while. He narrowed his eyes again. Don't do anything sorry for me, otherwise I will really leave and you may not be able to find me. Even if you become powerful in the future, you can do anything in this world. You can't find me either. Lu Bachan's heart tightened. Madam, where are you going? If you do something sorry for me, I will go to a place where you can never find me again. You are not allowed to go. Then will you do anything sorry to me? Won't. Then I will spend the rest of my life with you honestly. We will still be together in the next life. Let's talk about the next life in the next life. Say it now. Lu Bachan rushed forward again. The next day, when the sky was bright, Lu Bachan was still lying on the bed, looking at the lady lying next to him, feeling that he couldn't get enough of her. He caressed the lady's face. She was almost 30, but her face was still so tender. This skin can be broken by a blow. Lu Bachan touched his skin that was wrinkled by the wind, wondering if he should also ask his wife for some white clay to apply on his face. Otherwise, when the wife is with him, she will be like an old husband and a young wife. But the way the lady was sleeping was really heart-wrenching. Just as she was about to make a move, a sound came from the door. Lu Bachan had sharp ears and could tell it was his little daughter knocking on the door. Just as he was about to respond, he heard the two sons coming over and taking Xiao Qi away, still tiptoeing around. Lu Bachan smiled. As soon as he leaned down, Su Qingyu pushed him away. Didn't you hear your daughter knocking on the door? I didn't hear it. Besides, my son has already taken her away. Speaking of her two sons, Su Qingyu suddenly opened her eyes. How old are they, and you asked them to follow them to the battlefield 2 years ago? Why are you so big-hearted? Lu Bachan touched his nose. I didn't ask them to go. They were very eager and insisted on following quietly. They even dressed up as soldiers and mingled among so many people, but I didn't see them. You can't see it? Can't you see the generals under your command? You can't see anyone in the army. Oh, isn't this okay? Lu Bachan pretended to be stupid. It's okay, Su Qingyu slapped him, and Lu Bachan hid in the bed. If something happens, will you be worthy of me? Ah! How easy is it for me to raise them so big? Madam, stop fighting, be careful, your hands hurt. Lu Bachan dodged again and again. It took me a long time to coax her. Don't worry, I know it well. They are also my children, can I not be nervous? Xiaobao is your son, Dabao is not. Who said Dabao is not him? Who said Dabao is not him? Who am I to worry about? He is my biological son. Then you treat everyone equally. Of course I treat them equally. These two children have their own strengths in culture, Taoism, and military skills. I have never seen any children who are better than my two sons. They are all my sons. That's good. Let me tell you, I have already told my father to record Dabao's name in our family tree. He is the eldest son of our family. I will not allow you to treat him differently. That can't be true. I consider him my own. He is my child. By the time the couple had freshened up and went outside to look for their 3 children, Xiao Qi was already being taken by her 2 brothers, and her face was covered in sweat from playing. The 2 brothers played various games with her, and Xiao Qi laughed until her voice became hoarse. Look at all the sweat in your throat, it must be smoldering. I'll ask the kitchen to make some pear water for you later. Su Qingyu took Xiao Qi to wipe her sweat. Give it to the eldest and second brothers too, Xiao Qi muttered, enjoying her mother's care. Okay. Su Qingyu was naturally happy that the 3 siblings were getting along well. Lu Bachan carried Xiao Qi into the flower hall. Dabao and Xiaobao held her hands from left to right, holding her arms and followed behind. Did you sleep well yesterday? Su Qingyu asked her 2 sons. Okay. I slept great. The bed at home is more comfortable. Xiaobao looked satisfied. After speaking, he tilted his head and rubbed Su Qingyu's arm. The yard my mother prepared for us is large and comfortable. My brother and I both slept well. This is not our home in the mountains. Wherever Dad and Mom are, that's home. Su Qingyu felt warm in her heart after hearing this. As long as the child is satisfied. Xiaoqi was held by her father the whole time, and was fed by her father from time to time. She was fed by each of her two brothers, and her belly was quickly filled. Looking at this brother on the left and the other brother on the right, I felt very happy and my calves kept dangling. Dabao and Xiaobao sat between their parents and ate a hot and hearty lunch. From time to time, their mother would bring a piece of meat and vegetables, which made the two brothers very satisfied. It's better to be at home. With mother and father here, that's what we call home. The two brothers stayed with Sukingyu for a few days and then started wandering around Suzhou city. This is also their first time in Suzhou. I feel novel everywhere and feel that Suzhou is no worse than Renzhou and Reizhou in Yu region. There are a lot of people on the street, and the shops sell a wide variety of things. There were many vendors on the streets, offering food from both the north and the south, and the two brothers were very satisfied. Xiaoqi also often follows her two brothers, like a follower. If her brother doesn't take her, she will cry. Dabao and Xiaobao took Xiaoqi to eat on the street from East Street to West Street, and from North Street to South Street. The little girl usually didn't take her out easily, but this time two brothers took her. Happy. That day, she was brought back from outside by her two brothers. She grabbed a bunch of candy figures in her left hand and a bunch of fructose candies in her right hand. As soon as she entered the door, she heard a child calling her. Xiaoqi, Xiaoqi, where have you been? Why don't you come to play with me? A little boy with pigtails running out of the courtyard pouted a little aggrieved. Xiaoqi tilted his head and looked at the ground. Psyche. Shi pouted and raised his head to look at her. Bad girl, if you have a brother, don't want him anymore, Xiaoqi struggled to get out of his elder brother's arms and ran towards him. Psyche turned his head proudly, not looking at her. My brother and I went to the streets. The streets are really fun. There are people who breathe fire, and there are people who break rocks on their chests. It's really fun. Psyche pursed his lips. You won't take me with you. When we went there, you were sleeping, so I didn't call you. Look, the candies and fructose I brought you were delicious. They're all for you. Really, it's all for me. Xiao Psyche's mood immediately changed, and her eyes lit up. Yeah. I ate it on the street. I brought this for you. Thank you, Xiaoqi. Shi happily took it and was about to put it in his mouth. After thinking about it, he handed it to Xiaoqi's mouth. You eat first. Although Xiaoqi had eaten it, she still couldn't resist the temptation of candy and rushed over to take a lick. Two children, you and I shared the food at the door. When Psyche saw Xiaoqi playing with him again, he happily held her hand. Come, let's go play in the garden. My dad said we are moving out, and you will never see me again. Really? Real? Why are you moving out? This is your home. If you move out, it will be my home. Two children held hands and ran away. My brother doesn't want it either. Whose child is that? Dabao felt a little disappointed when he saw his sister was abducted by a boy. He turned and asked the guard guarding the door. He is the youngest son of General Gu Changqing. He is only 1 month younger than the lady. The two of them have been raised together since childhood. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhajiaoye 11U. Chapter 448. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. When the rice in the fields was blooming, Su Qingnao received a letter from Su's father and mother. Along with the letter came the dowry prepared for Qingxing by Su's father, Su's mother, Su Qingliu, and others. Sue's father and Sue's mother have a lot of things to do at home, and secondly, they are too far away and can't come over. The constant coming and going also delays a lot of things. So he entrusted Kingxing's marriage to Su Qingnao and Qing Yang. Along with the letter and the dowry came an unexpected person. Tang Tang? Are you Yi Tang? Yi Tang has met his second aunt, uncle, sister-in-law, third uncle, and fourth uncle. Su Qingyu was very surprised. The Su Yi Tang in front of me is Su Qingsong's eldest son. He is now 10 years old and this is the first time he has met him. Still in this Northland. Tang Tang? You and your parents have returned to live with your grandparents? How come your parents are so confident that you can come to Suzhou? Qing Yang, Qing Xing and others were surprised when they saw Su Yitang. This nephew is 10 years old and they have never met him. Yitang saw everyone staring at him, feeling a little embarrassed. Dad, my father and mother divorced. My father took my sister and me back to the mountains. We have been back for half a year. This time I heard that my aunt was getting married. My father wanted to come, but his legs and feet were not good, and his grandparents refused to let him come. Dad sent me here and asked me to follow my aunt and uncle. What's wrong with your father? Why are his legs and feet so bad? Su Qingyu and others were all surprised. Asked around him. Dad fell off his horse on the battlefield last year, and was stepped on by the horse on his leg bone. Now he walks with a slight limp. But Grandpa took him to the market town to see Dr. Mu, and also took him to Fengcheng to see Dr. Song. The two doctors said that they would let me recuperate, and when the leg is healed, the leg bones may be broken and reattached, and maybe it will be cured, and the legs may be the same as before. Did your mother reconcile with your father because of this? Qing Yang couldn't help but ask. Qing Yang, Su Qingyu shouted to stop him. Qin Jiang's eyes were a little hot, he raised his head, waved his hand and went out. Qing Xing looked at her sister, then at Qing Yang who was leaving, clenched her fists, and stayed. Yi Tang, come here, come to the second aunt. Su Qingnao saw that the child's face was a little pale and was afraid of scaring him, so she hurriedly called him over. When Yi Tang reached Su Qingyu with his head lowered, Su Qingyu touched his head and comforted him. It's okay, your uncle just feels sorry for your father. Second aunt, I feel sorry for dad too. Well, Teng Teng is so good. Why does your father want Teng Teng to come to Suzhou? Dad told me to follow my second aunt and my uncle, learn more skills, and become a man who stands upright in the future. Okay, be good. From now on, Teng Teng will stay with the second aunt and uncle and aunt, okay? When you feel homesick, just write a letter to your father and sister, and to your grandparents, okay? If you still want to, come and follow the second aunt. Tell me, okay? Okay. I don't want to go home. I want to learn from my second aunt, uncle, and uncle. Okay, from now on I will learn skills from my uncle with your two cousins. Lu Bachan felt that this child was sensible and felt sorry for him when he left home at such a young age, so he said something to the child. Thank you, uncle. I'm sorry for bothering you. Oh, good boy, we are a family and we don't speak the same language. After Lu Bachan finished speaking, he called up his son again, Dabeo, Xiaobeo. Father. Hey, where is your brother? He and Ma Zheng went out to talk. Oh, then you take your cousin around the house. Okay. Teng Teng, let's go. Dabeo hurriedly greeted this cousin whom he had just met for the first time. Thank you, cousin. After the two children left, Su Qingyu read the letter back home again, sighed, handed it to Qing Xing, and then opened the letter from her godfather and uncle Xian. Both the godfather and uncle Xian said that they had entrusted Ma Zheng to her and asked Ma Zheng to follow Xiaobeo from now on. Then he found a boy named Ma Yan in Prince Yu's mansion to follow Dabeo. At this time, seeing Dabeo going out, Ma Yan also followed. Su Sangzi and Su Saiquan sighed when they saw Yi Teng and thought about Qing Song again. Ms. Qing Song, hey, the child is already 10 years old, and she doesn't even want to come back to see your parents. Your parents are worried about the two children and can't see them. Su Saiquan also sighed, it's better to divorce now. Qing Song and his daughter can take care of your parents in the mountains and take care of them. I'm afraid your parents should be extremely happy. Su Qingyu was a little worried, I don't know if his leg can be cured. It can be cured. Yi Teng said it can be cured. When he cures his leg in the future, let your parents marry him a wife and have a few more children. Good times are ahead. It's just a pain for two sons. Hey, who says it isn't? I'm so angry. It must be my sister-in-law, no, it's my ex-sister-in-law. She didn't let my brother come back to see us for so many years. Now it's better. When I see that my brother's legs and feet are not good, I don't want my brother anymore. I said she is not a good person. Qing Xin groaned angrily and couldn't sit still. Tell your voice lower. Yi Teng is still here. She is also his mother. Don't talk about his mother in front of him, Su Qing lectured her. I'm not stupid, I won't say it in front of Yi Teng. Yi Teng is also your nephew, you can't have any objections to him. I don't know how. One code is the same. Yi Teng is also my nephew, the son of my eldest brother. Now he has returned to us, why should I talk about Yi Teng? Su Qingyu sighed and looked at Su Sangzi and Su Saiquan. It has been almost 4 years since they came to help her. In these 4 years, she has not been back home and is far away from her family. Third uncle, fourth uncle, after you finish busy with Qingxing's marriage, you can go back to the mountains to reunite with your family. Qing Lao, you. Su Sangzi and Su Saiquan were a little surprised and didn't know what she meant. I'm not driving you away. I'm giving you a holiday so that you can go back to the mountains to reunite with your family. Now that Zhenhai and Yuedi are connected, the road is easier to travel. It will be more convenient for you to go back to the mountains. When you finish visiting your relatives, you will go to Runzhou. To Runzhou? Not to Suzhou. Su Qingyu nodded, yes. The climate there is better than Suzhou. The 3 states were just acquired this year. The land is fertile and needs more people to manage it. Now it has been straightened out here and you have brought people out. It is more beautiful over there. There is a shortage of people. It is also close to Renzhou. You can take your family to Runzhou and it is very convenient to travel to and from the mountains. Su Sangzi and Su Saiquan felt happy after hearing this. Really? Let's go to Runzhou, wouldn't that be closer to home? Su Qingyu nodded, really. The 3 places over there will become the granary of Zhenhai in the future. You can help your niece-in-law manage them there and help him keep an eye on them. Lu Bachan also looked at the 2 of them, I'll leave it to my 3rd and 4th uncles. Thanks to my 3rd and 4th uncles for their help in the past few years. Su Sangzi and Su Saiquan stood up immediately, my niece and son-in-law have spoken harshly. If it weren't for Qing, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be where we are today. Since you need us to go to Runzhou, let's go there after we finish Qingxing's wedding. Yeah. Let's go back to the mountains to see my family first, and then go there. Okay, the 2 of them rubbed their hands happily. I've been out for a few years, how could I miss home? Since Su's father and mother could not come, Qing Xing's dowry was also shipped. Pei Shi and Su Qingyu began to arrange the marriage of Pei Ji and Qing Xing. Follow the 3 books and 6 etiquettes and go through them all. Now that Pei Shi has established a firm foothold in Suzhou, many members of the Pei family have come here. Coupled with Pei Shi's old in-laws, the marriage will not be simple. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha 11U. Chapter 449. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. Pei Shi has been looking forward to this marriage since 3 years ago. Now he and Zhi'er are the only 2 direct descendants of the Pei family. He had long hoped that Zhi'er would marry a wife and have several children so that he could continue the lineage of the Pei family. He has also scouted many families over the years. Either Zhi'er is dissatisfied, or he is dissatisfied. There are many people who want to climb up. But even though his Pei family is in decline, not everyone can reach it. The choice of Zhi'er, the granddaughter-in-law, is very important. A good mistress can prosper 3 generations. It cannot be ignored. Unexpectedly, when he was so worried, Zhi'er would find him by himself. Madam's biological sister, Su Qingxing. He hesitated at first. The Su family is not a well-established family. The wife who will give birth to a son in the future will have to be in the palm of her hand, and be in charge of the Pei family's clan. Ordinary women may not be qualified. Pei Shi secretly inspected Qingxing, and the more he looked at it, the more satisfied he became. Although this child was born in a farm family, he had been reading and reading since he was a child. His sister and Ma Mingwen's wife had taken him with him since he was a child, making him enlightened and enlightened. Now she is helping her sister in charge of the affairs of the Jidushi master's house, and helping to manage the affairs of the army. The shop's account books are also better than those of the old shopkeeper. Pei Shi became more and more happy as he watched. When he wanted to make up his mind, Qingxing didn't express his position. He was put off and put off for 3 years, which made him extremely anxious. He also bought the mansion, and the girl and her servants also bought it, and they just waited for the little girl to get married and take charge of the middle class. For 3 years, he was so anxious that he could neither eat well nor sleep well. It's better now, the little girl is finally willing to let go. Pei Shi was in high spirits during happy events, and there was wind on the soles of his feet when he walked. All the subordinates in the yamen felt a lot more relaxed when they saw him smiling every day. The governor finally stopped keeping a straight face. Congratulations. My parents are gone, so only my sister, Su Qingyu, can take care of her. Su Qingnao almost stopped talking. Things were finally straightened out, but unexpectedly the little girl became timid again before getting married. The Pei family's betrothal gifts were all brought over and placed in the backyard, but she herself flinched. Su Qingyu left Lu Bachan and Xiao Qi behind, slept with her for a few days, and talked to her about the ways of being a wife and daughter-in-law for a few nights. Qingxing's worries were finally dispelled. Sister, I don't want to live in someone else's home. I want to stay with you. I don't want to leave you. Qingxing was a little scared. From the age of 6, she followed her sister to Fengting town, where she was brought up by Su Qingyu's side. I have a deep dependence on this sister. Before getting married, the thought of leaving my sister and living in someone else's home made me feel reluctant and endlessly worried. Su Qingnao also felt a little uncomfortable. The girl she had worked so hard to raise was about to leave her. But he comforted her softly, that's not someone else's house, that's your husband's house, where you and your children will live together in the future. What kind of life you want to have in the future, you have to work hard and make your life how you want it to be. Qingxing didn't speak, just held her arm and buried her head in it. Master Pei is a kind man. Pei Qi is willing to listen to you. His family has a simple population. You don't have to serve and take care of a bunch of people from your husband's family like others. You just need to take good care of Pei Qi and his grandfather. As for his clan members, you should always ask Mr. Pei for his opinion on everything. Our family is not like the Pei family, which has been a big family for hundreds of years. We have not experienced those things. Our big family has a mixed population and many rules. Read more, listen more, learn more, Ask questions if you don't understand, and don't make decisions on your own easily. You're still crying? What's there to cry about? When you're a bride, shouldn't you be happy? Why are you crying? How could I cry? Yes, you are not crying, you are just sniffing. Sukingyu smiled. When Qingxin got married, Qingyang carried her on the sedan chair, and Dabao, Xiaobao, Yitang, Ma Zheng, Ma Yan, and others got married as the younger brothers of her mother's family. Two 3-year-old children, Xiaoqi and Saiki, were dressed up as festive children and used as bed-rolling boys. Although Su's father and mother were not here, they still sent a thick dowry. In addition, Sukingyu and Lu Bo carried it, and the betrothal gifts sent by the Pei family were sent back as dowries. The team to transport the dowry was very long. It's spectacular. The streets on both sides of Suzhou City were crowded with people watching the ceremony. Eyes full of red. Especially festive. Lu Bachan saw that his wife was happy and reluctant to give up, so he stepped forward and hugged her. Madam, our wedding at that time seemed a bit shabby. How about I arrange a replacement wedding for you? Sukingyu rolled her eyes at him. You are about to marry your daughter-in-law, but you want to make up for the wedding. Aren't you afraid that others will make fun of you? It's nothing to laugh at. Maybe others will make it a good story. Sukingyu pouted. What a good story. Lu Bachan thought of the shabby wedding at that time and felt a little sorry for his wife. At that time, my family only gave your family 50 taels of betrothal gift, and my wife only missed 1 tael. It makes my heart hurt when I think about it. If you feel bad, treat me well in the future. You are not allowed to hide your private property, and all the money you make will be given to me. Remember? No need to say that, it's all yours. That's pretty much it? Madam, do you really don't need to make up for it? How about we do it quietly? Don't let our sons know. No, but... What? The wedding was a bit shabby at that time, but there was no need to make up for it, but the honeymoon can be made up for. Honeymoon? What is honeymoon? Lu Bachan looked confused. I heard that newlyweds have a 1-month honeymoon period after they get married. During this month, the couple can choose a place with beautiful scenery to spend their time together without being disturbed and cultivate their relationship well. Two people's feelings. Lu Bachan's eyes lit up. Is there such a statement? Let's go too. He was very interested. Think about it, my son is already 12 years old, and he and his wife don't really spend much time together. He has never taken his wife to play anywhere or gone out with her. The more I thought about it, the more excited I became. Madam, let's go then? My husband will take you out for a nice walk. We have also passed the honeymoon period. You have so many things to do, how can you get away with it? Sukingyu didn't believe it and curled her lips. Although I have many things to do, I have people under me. So many people, all earning a white-collar salary. And there is no war now, and the weather is warm again. It's a good time to travel. You can really walk away. Sukingyu didn't believe it. Go ahead. I can sort things out. Seeing Lu Bachan's confident look, Sukingyu was also very moved. Okay, then we will make a good plan. Lu Bachan rubbed his hands happily. Do you want to bring the children with you? Lu Bachan remembered what his wife had said just now, that this was to cultivate the relationship between husband and wife, and it was the honeymoon period of the couple's world. But, without the children? What are you thinking? If you don't take the children with you, can you safely leave them in the house? Aren't you afraid that they will cause trouble? Lu Bachan frowned. Dabao and Xiaobao are quite easy to coax, but I'm just afraid that Xiaoqi will make trouble. Take the children with you. The children have followed us and haven't gone anywhere to play. Dabao and Xiaobao have also been away from me for a few years, and I don't want to be separated from them. Then take the children with you. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bajia 11U. Chapter 450. Recite the URL 3 times silently. Do you remember it? If not, I will ask again in the next chapter. It would be best if you can share it on Facebook. Su Qingmei looked at the long line of carriages following behind her and felt a headache. Isn't it a honeymoon for two people? What's the matter with this long line of carriages? Maidens, servants, guards, children, nephews, brothers, and sisters. Su Qingmei looked at the man riding a horse happily with his daughter in his arms outside and couldn't help stroking his forehead. My wife, what's wrong? Su Qingmei glared at him and lowered the curtain. After a while, Lu Bachan lifted the curtain and got in. Do you miss your husband? He hugged her and kissed her. Get out of the way, it's so hot. You don't want to be intimate with me in such a hot day. Seeing that his wife shied away, Lu Bachan took her in again and kissed her. It smelled really good. Su Qingmei patted him. You don't mind the heat? That's right, it's so hot, and you still cover the curtains, Lu Bachan said, and opened the front and back curtains, and then fixed them on both sides. The carriage was running on the road, and the wind blew in, bringing a little coolness. Look, isn't it much cooler this way? I asked you to go out and ride with us, but you didn't want to. We are all our people here, what are you afraid of, and you still have to cover the curtains. The curtains are not thick, don't you eat dirt all the way open. He was covered in dust. What's wrong with eating some dirt? Don't you feel uncomfortable sweating from the heat? You still want to come out even if you feel uncomfortable. Su Qingmei rolled his eyes at him. Didn't you say you wanted to go out for a honeymoon for two? Is this how a honeymoon looks like for two people? Lu Bachan looked outside, and saw the huge convoy with guards and entourage on both sides. Touched his nose. I can't just leave my son and daughter at home. Besides, you said it's more lively with more people. Su Qingmei glared at him, but she wasn't angry. She just felt that she was worried that she couldn't make good arrangements for so many people to go out together. Ask him, have you explained everything to the army before you come out? Are you really okay? Jin and Liang are fighting for territory in Weibo, aren't you keeping an eye on them? Don't worry, I've made all the arrangements. I haven't had a proper rest in all these years. I'm not made of iron. Besides, I have so many people under me, and they can't rely on me for everything. Don't worry, there won't be chaos without me. Then can we stay in Haizhu for a few more days? You can stay as long as you want, and your husband will accompany you. That's what you said, and you are not allowed to regret it. Am I that kind of person? If Weibo wasn't in chaos now, your husband would want to accompany you all the way south to play, and then take you back to the mountains to have a look. You haven't been back for several years. Speaking of the mountains, Su Qingmei's face was a little nostalgic. Although she had been in Kyoto village and Fengting town when she first arrived, the mountains were the place where she had worked hard. That was her hard work and the concern she could not let go of. Seeing her face full of nostalgia, Lu Bachan embraced her. When the situation gets better in the future, I will accompany you back to take a good look. Yeah. Seeing Lu Bachan's guilty face, he comforted him. It's okay, there will be plenty of time in the future. Haizhu is also very good, and it is close to Suzhou. Several children have never seen the sea, so it's a good time to bring them here to see it. Seeing Su Qingmei smile, Lu Bachan felt relieved, let go of her, put his hands on his head, and leaned against the wall of the car. Don't talk about the children, your husband has never seen the sea. When I was a child, I heard that the sea was very big, you couldn't see the end, it was connected to the sky, and there were fish bigger than houses in the sea. I was looking forward to seeing the sea when I was a child. Didn't you go to the beach when you attacked Haizhu before? When we attacked Haizhu, as soon as the city gate was broken and the army was incorporated, I hurried back to see you. There was no way to go to the seaside. Besides, it's not close from Haizu City to the seaside. I didn't have the time at that time. Dad, Dad, Zioki's voice came from outside the carriage. The couple looked out and saw Dabeo holding her on the horse, and Zioki was stretching her hand to Lu Bachan. Dad, Mom, the little girl wanted to get into the car, probably because she was bored outside. Lu Bachan leaned out and took Zioki in. Dad, is there really a fish bigger than a house? Is it bigger than the house we live in? Zioki looked at Lu Bachan with a pair of big eyes. Suking Mei chuckled. It was obvious that the girl didn't want to ride a horse because she heard what her father had just said outside. Before Lu Bachan could reply, Dabeo and Ziobeo also got in. Mom, is there really a fish bigger than a house? Ziobeo looked at Suchingen. I think so. I read in a book before that there is a sea in the north of the north, which is the Tianka Lake. There is a fish there. It is thousands of miles wide and long. Its name is Kun. Dabeo said. I also read the sentence in Zhuangzi, saying there is a fish in the North Sea, its name is Kun. Kun is so big that no one knows how many thousands of miles it is. Mother, is there really such a big fish, or is it made up? Ziobeo looked puzzled. Seeing that several children were looking at her, Suchingen smiled and said, I don't know if there are fish thousands of miles long. I haven't seen one. But the sea is very big and deep, and no one knows what the fish living in the deep sea look like. But some people have seen whales that are more than 10 feet long and weigh hundreds of stones. Fish weighing hundreds of stones, several children and Lu Bachan opened their mouths in shock. Zioki didn't know what hundreds of stones were. Seeing that her father and brother opened their mouths wide, she also opened her mouth wide. Sukinjeo nodded. The kind of sealing boat is the kind of big official ship, and the merchant ship for loading cargo, the big one costs 2,000 yuan, can hold 1 or 200 people, and there must be hundreds of fish. A 2,000 material boat is so heavy. Wow, isn't that the kind of fish that can hold tens of thousands of people? Ziobeo was so shocked that his eyes widened. Is there such a big fish? It's not wrong to use this metaphor. No one has ever seen fish in the deep sea, but the ones known so far are this big and heavy. Wow, then I want to go see it. This time I want to stay at the beach for a few more days. Ziobeo was very excited. Brother, I also want to see a fish as big as a house, Xiaoqi also shouted. If we catch a fish that big, wouldn't it be enough to feed an army of 200,000 for several days? Lu Bachan's eyes rolled. Ziobeo's eyes lit up. Yes. Dad, if you catch one every day, no, as long as you catch a few a month, it will be enough to feed an army of 200,000. It's so hard for my mother to grow food. It would be great if I could catch a few fish to feed the army. Sukingyu looked at the father and son in a funny way. A fish weighing several hundred stones is as heavy as hundreds of 2,000-ton boats. What do you use to catch it? The father and son were dumbfounded. Yes, Dad, for such a big fish, its mouth must be very big. When it opens its mouth, it swallows the whole army. It's not worth it. Ziobeo waved his hand. Xiaoqi also imitated his example, opened her mouth wide, and made a weird gesture. Made everyone laugh. Such a big fish lives in the deep sea and is difficult to reach with human power. And how big of a boat does it have to be? If the fish turns over and sprays water, both the people and the boat will have to be buried in the sea, Sukingyu said. Ziobeo shivered cleverly. Forget it, the army should just eat rice. I'll just go to the beach and have a look, but I won't catch it. He shook Sukingyu again. Mom, if there is anything else in the sea, tell us quickly. Sukingneo saw that several children were interested, so she told them some things about the sea, which made several children look forward to going to the beach early to see it. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bajia 11U. Chapter 451. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. After traveling for several days, we finally arrived at Haizhu. Because Shangguan was coming, Haizhu officials had made preparations early and prepared houses for Lu Bachan and his party in the city. Lu Bachan and Suqingnao did not want to make a big fanfare, so they only met the governor of Haizhu and a few subordinates and family members. Suqingyu and others stayed in Haizhu city for a day, walked around a bit, rested for a night, and went straight to the beach early the next morning. After sitting in the carriage for a long time, I finally smelled the moisture in the air and the sound of surging waves. The children couldn't sit still in the carriage, so they got on the horse early and took the lead, running away without a trace. Lu Bachan shook his head. These children even said they would accompany you and me, but no one has been seen at this moment. Is it better to be a husband? How else can I stay with you forever? Madam, don't worry, I will always by your side. Suqingyu slapped him hard. Who is old? You are the only one. Lu Bachan pretended to be in pain. My wife is not old, not at all. She will always be 18. Stop talking so much. Really? But the lady is good looking, and the husband is not old either. Madam, please touch it. My husband used your white mud to apply it on his face for a few days, and his face seems to be a little tender. He grabbed Suqingyu's hand and moved it towards her. Touch your own face. Suqingyu touched his face and said angrily, you are only in your early 30s, when you are in the prime of your life. How can you say you are old? Lu Bachan's eyes lit up. That's right, my husband is in the prime of life. He came over and wanted to take a sip on my wife's face. Sister, sister, come out quickly, I see the sea. Ching Xing's voice came from outside. Lu Bachan wailed, this girl is newly married and won't stay at home with her husband. She has to come with her. Isn't it the honeymoon you told her? It made her excited, so she dragged Pei Ji to follow. She and Qingyang have never seen the sea. Lu Bachan snorted. What does this mean? Whose honeymoon is it? It doesn't matter if my son and daughter come with me, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law will also come with me. Suqingyu had already got out of the car. As soon as I got off the car, I saw the sea and the sky, the blue sea, and I could hear the swell of the tide and the sound of the waves hitting the shore in the distance. Suqingyu opened her arms, squinted her eyes, and inhaled hard. It was the smell, moisture, the smell of the sea. Mother, mother, come quickly. Sister, come quickly. Hey, come here. Suqingyu responded and saw that several children had already dismounted and threw themselves towards the sea. Ching Xing, Qingyang and others also rushed towards the sea, and a group of people rushed towards the sea. And also prepared to go to the seaside. Like it very much, Lu Bachan stood beside her and asked. Yeah, I like it very much. Let's go there too. Good. The two ordered their entourage to unload the carriage and set up tents on the shore. Then he walked towards the sea. Take off your shoes. It will be very comfortable to take off your shoes and walk on the beach. Suqingyu glanced at Lu Bachan. Lu Bachan took off his shoes. Seeing that she wanted to make a move, he glared at her. Madam, you can't take them off. There are so many people. Suqingyu rolled her eyes at him and had no choice but to forget it. Father, mother, come quickly. Hey, here we come. Lu Bachan threw his shoes and socks on the shore and rushed towards Xiao Qi and others. Suqingyu followed behind with a smile. When several children saw Lu Bachan taking off his shoes, they also imitated him and took off their shoes. Wow, It's really comfortable to be barefooted, Xiaobao exclaimed. Mom, Mom, the sea is really so big. Several children saw Suqingyu coming down and hurriedly gathered around her. Mom, this sea is bigger than the inexplicable lake in Suzhou City. Mom, it's so big. You can't even see the head. Xiaoqi pulled her and shouted excitedly, Mom, why didn't Xiaoqi see the fish? The fish are in the sea. After a while, my mother will take Xiaoqi to see if there are any fish in the shallow sea. Okay, Xiaoqi clapped her hands. Sister, sister, look, I picked up a beautiful shell. Qingxing ran towards her holding a shell. Auntie, I want to see it. Xiaoqi grabbed her hand and stood on tiptoe. Wow, it looks good. Xiaoqi will pick it up too. He ran away. Peiji, let's go pick it up again. Looking at Qingxing, who pulled Peiji and ran away excitedly, Suqingyu shook her head and laughed. Looking again, the guards, except for the servants who stayed on the shore to guard the carriage and luggage, were all running over, and everyone was shouting excitedly. It was the first time to see the sea. Yi Teng, who was a little reserved, followed his uncle and rushed into the sea with his trousers rolled up. Dabao, who is usually steady, also followed Xiaobao, Ma Zheng, Ma Yan, and others to chase crabs on the beach. Quick, quick, run over there, block it, block it. Soon Qingyang and Yi Teng also joined in, and several young men were chasing crabs on the beach. Suqingnao couldn't stop laughing. Look at Lu Bachan again, following his daughter, chasing the waves. As soon as his daughter saw the waves crashing towards her, she turned around and ran back with a giggle. The father and daughter were chased by the waves, laughing so happily. The little girl had already taken off her shoes and left them far away on the shore. Her trousers were rolled up high by her father. At this time, the little girl stood on the soft beach soaked by the sea water, looking down at the sea water passing by her feet, and watching the quicksand flowing down her feet little by little with the force of the water. The little girl stared straight at her feet, curious and excited. Never experienced before. Her little toes moved, and the water flowed between her toes. After a while, the sea water receded, and her feet sank in. The little girl swayed, and soon the sea water came up again. Before she could run away, she stared at the sea water. The sea water was moving, the quicksand was also moving, and the little girl was shaking, and with a plop, she sat down in the sea water. Suqingyu couldn't help laughing. Mom, dizzy, the little girl pouted and looked up at her. Lu Bachan laughed and lifted the little girl up from her armpits. Dad, the sea water is coming again, run. Lu Bachan was chasing her while being chased by the waves. The father and daughter burst into laughter. Suqingyu stood in the cool sea water, letting the sea water lap at her feet, feeling that the heat dissipated all of a sudden. The sea breeze is very comfortable. On the shore, a group of children poked their heads and stared at this group of unknown people. Brother Shan, who are they? The half-grown boy named Brother Shan shook his head. Another child looked envious. Their clothes are so beautiful, they sparkle in the sun, they must be silk. They are so beautiful. And those carriages and horses, we can't even afford a cow, but they have so many horses. They must be rich people. Nonsense, he must be a rich man, how can you tell? It must be a noble person from somewhere who comes to play. What kind of noble person comes to visit our poor fishing village? What's so fun? Xiao Wu, go back and find the village chief. The child named Shan Ji ordered a child next to him. I don't know who these people are. What if it's not good for their village? He had to watch. Okay, the half-grown child named Xiao slipped into the forest. At the beginning of the chapter, I asked you to read it silently 3 times. Do you remember? Share on Facebook and there may be surprises. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha 11U. Chapter 452. Recite the URL silently 3 times. Do you remember it? If you don't remember, I'll ask again in the next chapter. It's best to share it on Facebook for me. Sukingyu took several children along the coastline and walked behind a reef. They saw several half-year-old children squatting on the beach, digging for something with something in their hands. "What are you digging for?" Xiaobao was very curious and asked as he took 2 quick steps. Several half-year-old children, wearing dusty patched clothes, with trousers and sleeves rolled up high, squatted barefoot on the beach, each holding a wooden tool. They were immersed in digging without paying attention. Suddenly, they saw a group of people walking towards them, including several half-year-old children, who were startled. He hurriedly picked up the basket next to him, stood up hastily, hugged the basket tightly in his arms, and hid behind an older child. The eldest child, who was not very old, looked like a teenager. He held the tool in his hand tightly and looked at Sukingyu and others. "Who are you?" As he spoke, he retreated into the sea. "They are good swimmers, and if the enemy comes to arrest them, they will flee into the sea. This is worthless and you don't like it." The child took courage and backed away. Several children gathered around the half-grown child, retreating in fear and nodding in agreement. "Yes, it's worthless, you don't like it?" Seeing that several children were scared, Sukingneo hurriedly called Xiaobao. "Don't be afraid, we are not bad people," he reassured. Several children looked at this young and beautiful woman, not daring to relax at all. Sukingyu looked at Xiaoqi next to her, smiled at her, and pushed her. Xiaoqi understood immediately and took 2 steps forward. "Brother, don't be afraid. My parents and my brother are not bad people. We are here to play." "Brother, sister, what were you digging just now?" "Xiaoqi also wants to dig." The little girl stood on tiptoes as she spoke, wanting to see what was in the other person's basket. However, it was still about 10 steps away and could not be seen. Among the children, there was a little girl who was 6 or 7 years old. She looked at Sukingyu, then at Xiaoqi, and tugged on the eldest child's clothes. "Fourth brother, they don't look like bad people." The kid named Fourth brother's face was a little loose. When Xiaoqi saw that the other party didn't answer her, she ran over. "Xiaoqi wants to dig too." He ran over to where the children were squatting and started digging with his hands. "You can't dig like that, your hands will get hurt," the little girl said hurriedly to Xiaoqi. "Sister, what should we use to dig?" "Use this." He threw the wooden rake in his hand to Xiaoqi and moved his steps. "Are you digging clams?" Sukingyu also walked over. The little girl looked at Sukingyu and nodded towards her. "Can I take a look? Let me see how big the clams are here." When the little girl saw Sukingyu smiling at her again and speaking softly, she walked towards her with the basket in her arms. "There are big ones and there are small ones." "Really? Let me take a look." Sukingyu looked into her basket. "Mom, Xiaoqi wants to see it too." Xiaoqi immediately stood up and picked up the basket to see. Xiaobao, Dabao, and others also came over. The fisherman's children became nervous again. Sukingyu handed the basket to Dabao and asked him to hold it to show to his younger brothers and sisters. She took out a handful of candies from the purse around her waist and handed them to the little girl. Here are the candies. Let's share them with you and your brothers. We are not bad people. We just brought some of my children to the beach for a look. They saw the sea for the first time and were curious." The little girl looked at the candy in Sukingyu's hand, swallowed, and looked back at her brother. Seeing that her brother had no objection, she hurriedly reached out and took it. "Brother, candy." The little girl happily waved the candy in her hand towards her brother. Several children surrounded her, all staring at the candy in her hand. She divided one for each of them. Several children were very happy. He immediately tore off the candy wrapper and put it in his mouth. The older boy didn't eat and put him in his pocket. "Maybe he really has a short mouth," so several boys handed the baskets in their hands to Sukingyu to look at. "Madam, I also have clams here for you to see." "Okay, thank you." Sukingyu took it and took a look. She saw that there were big ones and small ones. The big one was as big as a child's palm, and the small one was as big as 2 fingers. The patterns on the body were also beautiful. "Mom, Zioki wants to dig it too." "I'll teach you how to dig." "I'll teach you how to dig too." After a while, Dabeo, Ziobeo, and others were playing with a few fishermen's children, squatting and digging for clams with them. "If we didn't have a rake, we dug with our hands, using sticks and stones found on the shore." "Mom, look, I dug a big one." "I dug one too." "Mine is bigger than yours." "I'll dig bigger ones." Even Qing Xing, Peiji, Qing Yang, and others couldn't help but squat down and start digging. Zhou Cheng followed Xiao Wu and ran out of the village in a hurry, and what he saw was this scene. Several children in their village were digging clams with the strangers, laughing loudly. His grandson's voice was the loudest. "You are not as big as I dug just now. I dug one last time, and grandpa's hands are so big. They weigh several pounds each." "Si baby, don't brag. It's still a few pounds, 1 or 2 pounds at most. It's not just that. It's just a few kilograms. I still have the shell. If you don't believe me, I'll bring it to you later." The dozen men and women who followed Zhou Cheng from the village were also stunned. Then they looked at the rakes, sticks, and shovels in their hands. "This. Shanwazi, what's going on?" "Grandpa village chief, I don't know. There are so many people, so many carriages and horses, and there are women and guards. I don't know what they are here for." "Village chief, this doesn't look like they are here to collect fishing taxes. Bringing their families to collect fishing taxes. Is it really just some rich family bringing their families to play?" LV Bachan's guards had actually discovered this group of people a long time ago. At first, they saw that they were just a few children, and they saw that they were just hiding behind the bushes and peeking at them. They didn't see them doing anything, so they didn't care. But now there are more than a dozen men with weapons, and they can't pretend not to see them. "Who are you?" a guard shouted towards the bushes. The voice was loud and murderous, and it scared village chief Zhou and others so much that their legs went weak. "Come out. We are not bad people, we are just villagers from a nearby village." Village chief Zhou walked out with the villagers in a trembling voice. "Villagers. What do you want to do with rakes and shovels?" The guards walked towards them with swords. When the people of Lishan village saw that the other side had displayed their weapons, they were so scared that their legs went weak and they threw away the rakes in their hands. Village chief Zhou raised his hand and walked over. "Good man, don't do it, don't do it, we are villagers from a nearby village. We heard that a noble person came to the seaside, so we came to see it." "Come to see it, with weapons. Go, report to the adults." Yes, a guard ran towards the seaside. "Big, adults." Village chief Zhou fell to the ground. "It's over." The villagers also looked ashen. "Do you remember that I asked you to recite it 3 times at the beginning of the chapter? Share it on Facebook and there may be surprises."